NASA has announced yet another first on Mars Wednesday, having literally created oxygen out of the red planet's thin air. That's thanks to an experimental device carried by the six-wheeled rover vehicle called Perseverance that landed there in February. The gadget is called MOXIE, and in its first activation it created 5 grams of oxygen from the atmosphere of Mars, which is mostly carbon dioxide. That's enough for an astronaut to breathe for 10 minutes. It may sound small, but that's big news, marking the first experimental extraction of natural resources from another planet that humans can directly use. NASA says it's the first technology of its kind that may help future missions live off the land of another world. Oxygen is needed not only to see humans on Mars someday, it is also crucial for the fuel to get them home.
The Martian atmosphere is 95% carbon dioxide, a few percent nitrogen, a few percent argon, trace amounts of everything else. But there's still a lot of CO2, and so that's probably the most abundant resource on Mars other than dirt. CO2 has oxygen bound in it, and if we can liberate that oxygen from some of that CO2, then we can use it to do something useful.
And this box getting lowered inside the belly of the rover is MOXIE, or the Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment. It's got an agenda separate from the others, and that's to make oxygen on Mars for the first time. Well, at least in real life.
In The Martian, there was something that was called the oxygenator.
Hello, this is Mark Watney, astronaut. I'm entering his log for the record, in case I don't make it. It is 6:53 on Sol 19, and I'm alive, obviously, but I'm guessing that's going to come as a surprise to my crewmates and to NASA, and to the entire world, really, so. Surprise! I did not die on Sol 18, best I can figure. This length of our primary communications antenna broke off and tore through my biomonitor and ripped a hole in me as well. But the antenna and the blood really managed to seal the breach in my suit, which kept me alive, even though the crew must have thought I was dead. I have no way to contact NASA, and even if I could, it's going to be 4 years until a manned mission can reach me. And I'm going to have designed to last 31 days. If the oxygenator breaks, I'm going to suffocate. If the water reclaimer breaks, I'll die of thirst. If they have breaches, I'm just going to kind of implode. And if by some miracle none of that happens, eventually I'm going to run out of food. So, yeah.
So we jokingly refer to MOXIE as the oxygenator. It's unclear in the movie what technology the oxygenator are actually using, but it's very likely that it would be something like MOXIE, but scaled up. MOXIE uses a technology called solid oxide electrolysis. It works a lot like a reverse fuel cell, where instead of putting in a fuel and getting electricity out, we can put electricity in and electrolyze and basically get a fuel and an oxidizer out. On the outside of the rover, we have a small box with a filter. The filter is to make sure that we don't draw in any dust from the Martian atmosphere into our system, because the next thing in the path is a scroll compressor. The scroll compressor takes this low-pressure Martian gas from the atmosphere and compresses it and brings it up to something closer to Earth's atmospheric pressure, because the next thing that we do is we run it into this thing. We call this our solid oxide electrolysis stack, and it is basically a layer cake of a bunch of metal plates, which are the dark green things, and then these light-colored layers are thin ceramic cells that have particular chemical properties where at high temperature they can conduct electricity using oxygen as the charge carrier. We heat this guy up to about 800 degrees Celsius. You have oxygen ions on one side and you apply a voltage, then you can selectively drive the oxygen through the ceramic membrane and separate it out from whatever's on the other side. It goes through a set of sensors, very much like these sitting here on the table in front of me, and we measure what fraction of CO2 is there. We put CO2 in here, oxygen comes out here, and the waste product, which is a mixture of CO and carbon monoxide and unreacted CO2, comes out here. It's gold because we were concerned that MOXIE itself would run hotter than everything else around it, and we wanted to make sure that we didn't impact any of the nearby electronics boxes inside the rover. And so gold has very low emissivity, which means that it doesn't radiate heat effectively.